We had a little shuffle. Well, thank you, Mr. Bishop, for agreeing to serve your country again. I think the American people appreciate your willingness to put yourself into the battlefield. I want to ask you, you've been around, how long have you been around government? I've been around government for 8 entire weeks. How about you?
Senator, a little longer than that, but I too think of myself as a private sector career person. I spent 30 years practicing law in a small firm, serving people whose lives were on the line, frankly, in commercial matters that, it might be their business ownership or something that was.
But how long as an elected official?
So as an elected official, I've been about 10 years.
10 years. So in that time, especially your time here in Congress, have you ever seen an appetite to actually reduce the size and scale of government, like a really meaningful effort to make that happen?
Senator, it has been a constant presence. I've seen a lot of really great people who have pursued the objective, and yet it doesn't ever seem to come to pass. So you would have to conclude that there are a lot of people who are not doing that.
And when you were in the private sector, did you ever run into any organization that didn't fire anybody? Like, did you ever run into a company that said, we haven't fired a human being in 50 years? Or is it more natural that you have to constantly evaluate your workforce and say, hey, this group of people just isn't getting the job done? Maybe they didn't have the right training. Maybe they were the bad hire, whatever reason. But I found in my private sector experience that when you do that, when you reduce and get rid of and eliminate poor performers, the whole enterprise rises. Did you find that?
I think that's exactly right, Senator. And it's never a pleasant task, perhaps, one we'd like to avoid, but it's one of the tasks that's necessary in order to perform.
And just to clarify some misinformation that's out there online, does Elon Musk personally have the authority to fire anybody in the United States government?
That is not my understanding. I will say I'm not involved with the DOGE effort directly yet, and in any way. But But everything that I've understood about it and followed is that he does not exercise that power directly.
That's in the job of the people who actually do that. But he can certainly recommend. So, for example, I get a lot of calls from constituents. So if somebody's a person who works for the VA and her job is to greet veterans at the door, make sure that they got the resource they need, we look at it and say, that's a good job, right? We should have somebody there greeting the veterans, making certain they know what their needs are. And if that person lives 5 hours away and never shows up to the actual VA, would you think that that's a job that should be eliminated?
That ought to be looked at pretty seriously.
But what if they're a really nice person? What if they're a really nice guy? What if they're a veteran themselves and still live 5 hours away and never show up for work? Should we just keep that person on?
That's the kind of thing that doesn't make any sense, Senator, and the American people are ready for something to be done about it.
And if you have a company, for example, and we're going to get to the bottom of it in his GAC, but if you have companies that have sales reps that call on the government and yet allow something like what's happening at SBA with 37,000 software licenses for 13,000 employees. Does that seem normal to you?
That would never happen in a private business where you're trying to make ends meet, Senator.
I mean, I would just urge my Democrat colleagues, I plead with them, argue with us on things that actually are common sense and reasonable. But to argue the counterpoint that we should absolutely not root out waste, fraud, and abuse, and the counter-argument would be, oh, we're all for rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. I've been here 8 weeks. They've been here centuries combined. Centuries, like literally centuries combined. And it's never been done. So maybe sit this one out and allow this effort to go forward and not defend insanity like what we're seeing. Look, what the DOGE effort is being done, I want to say how I think history is going to judge this moment. You have the world's most successful entrepreneur, a guy who has zero reason even to go to work. He could literally point to anything on earth and say, I'll take it. I'm going to take that 500-foot yacht and go sail away. He's sleeping at the executive office building, going through line by line of the federal budget and recommending things like that to be cut. 4.7 million credit cards out in the hands of government workers. I ran a company with 1,100 employees, so a minuscule comparison. I had 5 corporate credit cards, and I had anxiety over all 5 of them.
Right.
How do you defend that? Like, why not be on the side where you say, this makes sense? Like, we got this incredible entrepreneur, a generational talent, the Thomas Edison of our time, and he's willing to serve our country to help us. The guy who you once loved. I mean, the left loved Elon Musk, and now they hate him. This is the subject of a Taylor Swift breakup song. I've never seen anything like it. But I want healthy competition from the other side. I think we should have a healthy exchange of debate and ideas. But watching them humiliate themselves last night at the State of the Union address was just too much. You can't applaud for a 13-year-old black kid who has brain cancer. Is this where we're at, Mr. Chairman? Where we're sitting here as a body that's supposed to be the deliberative body of the world. And instead, we can't even get them to applaud for a 13-year-old kid. We can't get them to say rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse is a good thing. I urge my Democrat colleagues, don't be like that team that played the University of Miami and got beat 97-0. We need a healthy, vibrant Democrat Party to challenge us, but challenge us on the things that make sense. And don't put out misinformation. Like we're going to go out there and randomly cut 50% of Medicaid. Those messages on TV affect real people. Real people who think, my God, if this happens, I don't know what I'm going to do. That's not what we're doing. Attack us when you think we're wrong on real information. My time is way expired. I used my minute and a half that took me to get to my chair. But thank you, Mr. Bishop, for serving. I look forward to you serving with director vote. It was great to see him here today. And I yield the negative amount of my time back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Lujan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.